There are moments when the world leans in on you, harder than usual. Deadlines, expectations, voices louder than your own, a tightness in your chest, a silence you can't control. You wake up with a weight, and everything you try to do feels like someone else is pulling the strings. You don't have to pretend you're okay. You don't have to act invincible. But you do need to learn one thing. Pressure isn't the enemy. Reacting to it blindly is. Because pressure is everywhere, and always will be. The question is, will it shape you, or will you shape how you meet it? That's where the Stoics come in, not as philosophers locked in dusty books, but as warriors of the inner world. They stood in front of death, betrayal, loss, and the collapse of empires. And still, they stood. Why? Because they mastered one art, the art of not giving in to pressure. This is not about being cold. It is about becoming composed, not emotionless, but deeply directed, and in a world designed to trigger your every fear, your every reaction. That kind of calm is rare and powerful. If that's something you need, if that's something you're building, then this video is for you. Take a second, just one, like this video, and subscribe if you want to train your mind, not with fluff, but with philosophy, with ancient fire and quiet steel. Now, let's go where most people never do. Let's go inward, where real pressure is born, and where it can be broken. The weight you carry. You carry more than you admit. Not just the job, or the bills, or the expectations people toss at you like bricks. You carry the quiet stuff, the voice that asks if you're doing enough, being enough, becoming enough. You carry memories, regrets, and the tension of trying to keep it all together when no one seems to notice. And still you walk. You show up. You keep moving. But pressure, real pressure, is not just the loud moments. It's the slow build, the subtle grind, the way silence starts to feel heavier than noise. Most people don't recognize pressure when it hits, because it doesn't knock. It seeps in, quietly. It shows up as mental clutter, overthinking, second-guessing, scrolling when you know you should act, tensing up before you even enter the room, smiling when deep down you're worn out. This is the pressure the Stoics spoke of. Not just war or political tension, but the daily war within. Marcus Aurelius had everything a man could want. Power, fame, the Roman Empire at his command. Yet he wrote to himself as if his own mind were the enemy. A beast to be disciplined, a child to be taught, a storm to be weathered. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." He was not romanticizing philosophy. He was trying to survive the mental weight of being responsible for millions. While his family died, his friends betrayed him, and the empire fractured around him. You carry weight too. Maybe you are not running an empire, but maybe you are trying to hold a family together, trying to break out of patterns you were raised in, trying to win in silence, without clout, without applause. You are trying to do something that matters, and the pressure of that matters too. But the reason it breaks most people is because they think it's personal. They think the pressure means they are failing, that if they were stronger, they wouldn't feel it, that if they were smarter, they'd fix it by now. That belief is poison, because pressure does not mean you are weak. It means you are alive. It means you are trying. And trying is not weakness. It is war. The Stoics taught that pain is not the enemy. Neither is stress, nor fatigue. What breaks a man is his unwillingness to accept the weight, to train under it, to develop resistance by choice. Instead, we run, we scroll, we avoid, and we slowly become strangers to our own strength. Seneca once said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." That is what pressure does when it goes unmanaged. It multiplies in your head. It builds stories. It creates monsters out of shadows. And it convinces you that breaking is inevitable. But here's the truth. The weight you carry is real. But the suffering, the spiraling, the mental chaos, that comes from how you hold it. Do you hold it with resistance, tension, fear? Or do you hold it with awareness, presence, and acceptance? This is where the Stoic art begins. Not in eliminating pressure, but in shifting how we carry it. You cannot always control the load, but you can change your posture under it. You can change your breath, your pace, your story. The Stoics didn't tell you to fake calm. They told you to build it, brick by brick, reflection by reflection. They trained themselves daily to return to the center, to control what they could, to let go of what they couldn't, and to meet the weight with something heavier, their inner code. So take a breath right now. Feel the weight. Don't flinch. Don't numb it. Don't escape it. Name it. Then ask, is this pressure a curse? Or is this weight a gym? Because that's the shift. Pressure does not always mean threat. Sometimes it means opportunity to grow, to adapt, to become the kind of person who doesn't collapse under expectation, but expands through it. So next time you feel the tightness in your chest, the cloud over your thoughts, the fatigue you can't explain, don't panic. Pause. You are not broken. You are under pressure. And that is training. The myth of external control. The lie we're told from the moment we begin to struggle is that control lives out there. In circumstances, in people, in what they do, what they say, what they withhold. We're taught that our peace depends on how the world treats us. That if the job works out, we'll be okay. If the relationship heals, we'll feel whole. If the money comes, the pressure will fade. But the Stoics shattered that illusion, because they saw what happens when you chase control where it doesn't live. You become a puppet, a man waiting on good weather to move forward. You become reactive, chained to outcomes, to others, to timing that was never yours to hold. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, but that wasn't what gave him control. It was what tested it. Every betrayal, every plague, every war, every death in his own family. He had no say in it. But his response? His posture in the storm? That was his fortress. You might not rule an empire, but you're under siege. From social pressure, from unspoken expectations, from the silent competition to prove yourself in a world obsessed with appearance. You're taught to hustle, grind, prove, impress. And you wonder why you're exhausted. You wonder why you feel like you're drowning in noise, even when you're alone. That's the myth. That control is something to grab, something to chase. But the Stoics turned their backs on that idea. They built control from within. They did not try to master the sea. They mastered the sail. They studied their minds like soldiers study terrain. They knew where their power began and where it ended. Epictetus, born a slave, maimed in body, still taught princes how to rule themselves. He said, "Some things are up to us, and some things are not." He repeated it until his students felt it in their bones. Until it was no longer theory, but reflex. What's up to you? Your thoughts, your actions, your choices, your response. What isn't? Other people's approval, the weather, the past, random outcomes, unfairness. And the tragedy is this. Most people reverse it. They obsess over the uncontrollable and neglect what's theirs. They blame. They wait. They beg life to bend in their favor. While their mind, the only thing they truly own, rusts in neglect. But you're here because you want to reclaim that. You want to stop reacting like the world owes you comfort. You want to start responding like your peace is not up for ransom. Because here's the truth. Pressure becomes unbearable when you think it shouldn't exist. When you believe it's unfair. When you treat life like it's meant to be convenient. But pressure is neutral. Life doesn't aim at you. It just happens. And control is not getting the world to obey you. Control is obeying your code in a world that refuses to bend. That's what the Stoics called freedom. Not doing whatever you want, but staying composed no matter what happens. So ask yourself right now, where are you trying to control what's not yours? Are you trying to fix someone else's reaction? Are you trying to rewrite the past? Are you trying to avoid every discomfort? If so, stop. Return to your breath, to your action, to your center. That's where power is born. Not in your grip on the world, but in your release of the illusion that the world owes you peace. You build that peace. You live it. You become the one thing that pressure cannot move, because your anchor is internal. And when that happens, when you no longer beg the external to feel strong, you've already won the fight most men never even see. Pressure is a test you were built for. You weren't made to float through life untouched. You were made to endure, to adapt, to sharpen under stress, to rise through pressure, not shrink beneath it. But somewhere along the way, the world taught you the wrong lesson. That difficulty is a signal to stop. That challenge means something's wrong. That pressure is something to avoid, not answer. That's a lie. You are not broken for feeling overwhelmed. You are not weak for feeling resistance. You are being tested. And that's exactly what you were designed for. Pressure, in its raw form, is not your enemy. It's the proving ground of the mind. The battlefield where character either cracks or gets carved into something stronger. The Stoics understood this like few others. They didn't pray for easier conditions. They prayed for stronger minds. They saw hardship as training, not punishment, but preparation. Marcus Aurelius, in the middle of plague, betrayal, and war wrote, "Fire feeds on obstacles." And he meant it literally. Whatever stands in the path of the fire becomes fuel for it. So what is pressure to you? Is it your excuse? Or is it your fuel? Every moment of stress, every situation that feels too big, is an invitation to step into the kind of man you claim you want to become. But you don't get that mindset by accident. You build it. Through pain, through challenge, through discomfort you choose not to run from. And here's the truth most won't tell you. The pressure will not stop. Life will not become easier. There will always be noise, deadlines, delays, critics, self-doubt, hard mornings, tough choices. The difference between the average man and the grounded one is how they respond when pressure enters the room. The average man bends, complains, blames, folds into his vices, waits for the storm to pass. The Stoic man still feels it, but he does not flinch, because he remembers, this is the test he was built for. This moment, right here, the rising heart rate, the silence before action, the uncertainty of what comes next. This is where composure is sculpted. You think discipline is for when life is calm, but it's for right now. When it's hard, when no one sees you, when you're tempted to break character just to breathe easier. But breathe through it anyway. Stand anyway. Take one more step with clarity, and you'll find that pressure reveals something incredible. It doesn't just expose your flaws. It exposes your potential. It shows you the parts of yourself that need sharpening. It reveals what kind of man you really are beneath the mask. This is why we train. This is why we practice stillness. Why we rise early. Why we journal. Why we stay calm when others lose their center. Not to look stoic, but to be ready for exactly this. To walk into the storm and remain upright. To stand inside the noise and hear our own mind clearly. To resist the urge to panic and act with purpose instead. Pressure is the classroom of the strong, and you've been enrolled, not by choice, but by life itself. So now the only question left is, will you react the way you used to? Or will you rise the way you've trained to? You are not fragile. You are not too late. You are not the story others told you. You are being shaped, right now, in this moment, by what you choose to do with this weight. You can give in, collapse, repeat the cycle of delay and regret. Or you can remember who you are becoming and why you began this path in the first place. Let the pressure mold you. Let it teach you where you still flinch. Let it break your illusions, but do not let it break your code. You were built for this, not to avoid it, but to walk through it with eyes open, jaw tight, mind clear. That is the Stoic path. And it starts now, not when the pressure is gone, but while it's standing right in front of you. Because pressure isn't proof that you're failing. It's proof that you're still in the fight. What Epictetus would say in chaos. Picture this. A crowded Roman marketplace. Vendors shouting, soldiers pushing through the crowd, children crying, the weight of empire everywhere. And in the middle of it, a man who owned nothing, who had once been a slave, who walked with a limp because someone had broken his body years ago. But his mind was untouched, unafraid, unshakable. That man was Epictetus. He knew chaos. He knew pressure. And he had every reason to break under it. But he didn't, because he had one principle drilled so deeply into his soul, no noise could shake it. What's outside my control is not my concern. And when you really live by that, not just say it, not just quote it, but absorb it, you become almost unrecognizable to the people around you. Imagine Epictetus sitting in your life right now, watching the deadlines, the chaos, the mistakes piling up, the messages you haven't answered, the choices that feel impossible. He wouldn't panic. He wouldn't flinch. He wouldn't try to fix everything. He'd observe it and ask just one thing. Is any of this mine to control? That was his superpower. In the fire of discomfort, he didn't reach for escape. He reached for clarity. What is mine to control? What is not? He taught this to his students, over and over again, in simpler terms than any philosopher before him. You're not overwhelmed because life is too big. You're overwhelmed because you're trying to hold what isn't yours. And when you try to carry the uncontrollable, you drop your focus, you drop your strength, and you become a man fighting shadows. Epictetus didn't deny emotion. He didn't say ignore fear. He said name it, study it, then decide if it deserves your energy. That's a practice we've lost. In the modern storm of opinions and pressure, we drown in the need to fix everything. Please everyone. Be perfect. But what would Epictetus say? He'd say, if someone speaks ill of you, do not defend yourself against their words, but live in such a way that no one will believe them. In other words, don't defend, demonstrate. Don't panic, posture. Don't chase control. Claim command of yourself. That's what he did, every single day, while walking the tightrope between powerlessness and absolute mastery. And now the question becomes, can you do the same? Can you sit with the tension in your life and say, I will not react. I will not panic. I will observe and act only where my control exists. Because when chaos hits, most people become slaves to urgency. They rush. They spiral. They lose their edge. But the Stoic edge is this: stillness. even in fire, to pause, to breathe, to remember. You are not responsible for how the world behaves. You are responsible for how you show up inside it. Epictetus would look at your pressure right now and ask, who decided this must be easy? Who told you that comfort is your right? And who told you that breaking means you're done? He'd say, you are not overwhelmed by life. You are overwhelmed by your beliefs about life. And so, the first thing to do, when pressure builds, is not to run, not to distract, but to sit in it and sort it. Where is my control? Where is my influence? Where is my responsibility? And everything else, everything that lives outside those answers. You let go, not because you don't care, but because caring doesn't always mean carrying. That is the highest form of mental discipline. To care deeply, but never be ruled by what's out of your hands. Imagine if that became your daily posture. Not passivity, but power. To walk into a room where everything is urgent and become the calmest man there. To look at the pile of pressure in front of you and say, this is not bigger than my mind. That's what Epictetus trained. That's what you can train. And no title, no money, no applause from the world can replace the kind of power that creates. Because when pressure rises and chaos spreads, the man who stays clear, the man who stands still, that man becomes a lighthouse for everyone else drowning in their own storm. Be that man. Rituals of the mentally untouchable. There are men who walk through storms without folding. They don't shout. They don't rush. They don't flinch. And it's not because their lives are easier. It's because their minds are trained. They don't rely on motivation. They don't wait for the perfect morning. They don't need silence around them to be silent within. They follow rituals. And those rituals, the unseen patterns, the quiet systems, the invisible scaffolding of their day, are what make them mentally untouchable. Not perfect, not emotionless, but composed, clear, deliberate. So what were these rituals? Let's start with the first. Early stillness. Before the noise of the world, before the opinions, before the news, the messages, the pressure, they take space, not because they have time, but because they make time. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, would sit with his journal every morning and remind himself that the day would test him, that people would be selfish, that delays would happen, that comfort would tempt him. He didn't do this to feel safe. He did it to expect pressure and rise above it. This ritual of stillness was not spiritual fluff. It was psychological armor. What's your version of that? A moment with your thoughts, a short walk in silence, a journal entry that reminds you what matters. Not to be impressive, to be prepared. The next ritual? Selective exposure. Mentally untouchable men do not scroll endlessly. They don't feed their minds garbage before they've even fed their body. They choose what enters. They defend their attention, because what you feed your mind is what your mind will return when pressure strikes. So they read things that sharpen them. They avoid endless, mindless consumption. They delete what weakens them, ruthlessly. Because peace isn't found. It's protected. For deliberate movement. No, this isn't about six-pack abs. This is about how the body governs the mind. The Stoics trained the body not just for strength, but for discipline. Seneca fasted not to impress, but to prove to himself that comfort did not control him. Modern Stoics take cold showers, wake early, do hard things on purpose, because they know, if you can't command your body, you'll never command your emotions. Discipline is physical before it is mental. So move, not to burn calories, but to ignite mental order. Fourth, mental rehearsal. The world will interrupt you. So rehearse how you'll respond. The Stoics called it premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of adversity. They imagined worst-case scenarios, not to fear them, but to reduce their surprise. If you know someone might betray you, you don't overreact when they do. If you know delays might happen, you don't fall apart when they hit. This isn't negativity. It's mental preparation. Pressure hurts most when it's unexpected. So make nothing unexpected, and the pressure loses its teeth. Fifth, evening ownership. At the end of the day, they don't just crash into their bed. They reflect. Seneca wrote letters to himself. Marcus reviewed his thoughts. The mentally untouchable don't let the day define them. They define how the day will live in their memory. What did I do well? Where did I fold? What can I adjust tomorrow? 5 minutes. That's all it takes to close the loop. Without this, your mistakes stay foggy, and you repeat them in the morning, because you never gave yourself a chance to learn from them. Now look, these rituals don't make you a god. You'll still feel doubt. You'll still get tired. You'll still want to quit. But these rituals give you something deeper than positivity. They give you ground. And when pressure rises, you won't need to remember a quote. You'll fall back on routine, because habits are what remain. When motivation is gone, and the storm is loud, the mentally untouchable do not build perfect lives. They build prepared ones. They don't perform discipline when it's easy. They live discipline when it's invisible, quiet, intentional, sacred. And it's in that sacred space that the strongest mind is forged, not through words, but through repetition. You don't need 100 hacks. You don't need a 10-step routine. You need to start showing up daily, in the dark, with consistency, until one day, pressure comes knocking, and you meet it with calm eyes, and a voice inside that says, "We've been ready."